Hey everyone. Hey everyone, and thank you for downloading Mint Condish Exclusive episode number 4. I am Suede Wade, and I got one hell of a show for you today. Me and Scott went to Universal Comics this week, and we interviewed Matthew Daley. Yes, the Matthew Daley, the writer of Lantern City, that hit boom comic about steampunk. It's more than just steampunk. It's a lot of other elements of entertainment. We went pretty good amounts. It was a really awesome interview. I loved it. He even asked us questions. It was more of a conversation than an interview, if you will. So I'm going to keep this little intro short so we can get majority of the episode to be the interview. I'm sorry, the conversation. So before then, let me just throw out the plugs. Some plugs for us. You're probably listening to this on iTunes. And on iTunes, you can click that subscribe button. Click the subscribe. Help us out. And if you click that subscribe, guess what? You get every episode of the Mint Condish Exclusive or Mint Condish Podcast, which is every Monday, on your iPhone immediately when it airs. If you do not have an Apple product, don't worry, because there's Podbean. Podbean.com. Also, Podbean has an app. It's a free app. You download it, you can listen to it, and subscribe. We also have a Twitter. At Mint Condish MCP. Give us the follow, give us the retweet, give us the favorite, whatever. We also have a Tumblr where we do comic reviews, anime reviews, movie reviews, whatever. It is mintkondishproductions.tumblr.com. We also have an Instagram, Mint Condish Productions. We also have another great place to watch us and listen to us. It is YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Mint Condish Productions. It's youtube.com/Mint Condish Productions. You can get old Mint Condish podcast episodes. You can get Mint Condish exclusives. You can also get the video shamers. Joe and Nick play video games and talk about it while playing. They have also have Twitter. You can follow them at the video shamers. All this, the YouTube subscribe, the iTunes, the Podbean, the Facebook, the Twitter, the Tumblr, the Instagram, all that, liking, following, subscribing, all that is free. So do yourself a favor, make your day a Mint Condish one, and let's just go to the interview. So, hope you enjoy our interview with Lantern City writer and all-around good dude, Matthew Daley. And we're here with the writer, the legend of Lantern City, the writer, Matthew Daley.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, how's it
That
going?
was kind. A legend already. My goodness.
Legendary.
Oh, legendary. Like Legendary Pictures?
Dairy.
There you go.
Hope you're not lactose
I
intolerant.
am lactose intolerant, but I will. We'll do like Legend almond milk or something.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
With vanilla. Gotta have the vanilla. If it doesn't have the vanilla, can't do it.
And we're here in Universal Comics, our comic book shop.
In beautiful Arbutus, Maryland.
It's my first time in Arbutus.
How do you like it?
I didn't see much, unfortunately.
Don't worry, there's not much to see.
Okay,
you're
so
good.
maybe I might have seen everything.
There's a
then.
Rite Aid.
Yeah, I grew up
Two.
for part of my life in a small town like Arbutus, so I understand. Although I didn't have a comic book shop in town, we had a news agency, which had the back was devoted to some comics, but it wasn't like a comic book shop, and they didn't know anything about comics.
So what was the first comic book store you remember going to?
The first comic book store that I went to was in Easton, Pennsylvania. It was called Image Comics. This was before Image was an imprint, and it was a cool store. It was in a strip mall next to a fried chicken place called Maryland Fried Chicken. So the comic book store smelled like fried chicken, which wasn't a bad thing. Which wasn't a bad thing at all. The chicken was really lousy. Unfortunately, it smelled great. It tasted
Maryland
like,
Fried
wait, is there cursing or no cursing?
Dude, say what you want.
Oh, okay, I was going to say it tastes like
Feel
shit.
free.
But the comic book shop was a pretty cool place, and I was always like the youngest person in there whenever I would go in there, and I would convince my grandfather to drive me down there. My mom would give me like $5, and I would do some damage. Usually go like once or twice a month because it wasn't like too close, but it wasn't too far either. So yeah, it's called Image Comics, which no longer exists. It only was open for like 5 years.
Rob Liefeld probably bought the rights to it.
I think so. It's like, no, you can't have this shop anymore. So that was my first. And then I also went to another one in a, oh man, I can't remember what it's called. It still exists, and I feel bad like that I don't remember what it is called. It was in a place called the Whitehall Mall in Pennsylvania. And A lot like this, actually. But again, like in malls. That's where I was getting comic books.
Yeah,
Shops and malls.
Yeah, I've never really seen, like, aside from the movie Mallrats, I've never really seen a lot of comic book stores in malls. When I saw that in the movie, it was kind of weird to me, but knowing that, you know.
No, so like the first 3 shops that I went to regularly were all inside malls.
So
Yeah.
would you say you yourself were a bit of a mall rat back in the day?
No, I to this day hate malls. But I would go, like if my mom had to go, I would go because, there's like 3 malls that my mom would go to, and they have a comic book shop in there. So she would just drop me off in there. It was like daycare. So she's like, I'll be gone back in 2 hours, and like would know the owners well enough that like they weren't creepy pedophiles or like, hustling me for money. So I wasn't a mall rat. Like even when I could drive, or I would go to the movies a lot, but I would not go to the mall and hang out. I don't know. I have a very good sense of direction normally, but when I'm inside of a mall, I have no sense of direction. It's like my super weakness. That's my kryptonite. I don't know where. Like I have no idea. Like what entrance do we go in? I don't know. Like I don't know. I don't know where anything is.
So if you go to a mall, you need a GPS.
I do. I'm the guy that's always going to the directory. Like every directory, it's like we just went to a directory like 5 shops back. I'm like, yeah, that's why they have them, because of me.
Stay away from the Annapolis Mall. I was just there 2 weeks ago, and it's a maze, dude. Like you really, we almost use GPS. Like I'm not even joking, just to get through, because you'll go in and you'll be like, oh wait, I thought this branched off here, and then it's a dead end, and
Yeah, it's confusing. And it's funny because my wife loves shopping. My wife could go to them all the time, and I hate it. So I think it's
not comic book stores.
No, the malls near us, they're not. But I have a lot of comic book shops near me, but they are not in strip malls or malls. So yeah, Mallrats wasn't weird to me. I think the gummy nipple was weird.
the gummy nipple, yes.
Although, I'm surprised that didn't take off. There's like Willy Wonka candy should have made like, gummy nipples. That would have been a big seller, like for the movies and stuff.
Question is, do you make it taste like a nipple, or are we doing nipple shape?
No, like raspberry, I think.
Raspberry?
Yeah, I think raspberry.
I think raspberry. Raspberry.
There's not a lot of raspberry candy that I can think of.
That is true. Or you know what,
underrated.
blueberry, just so we can get some blue food, because there's no blue food. Even blueberries are purple.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's blue raspberry. So we just combine them all.
Yeah, there we go. Oh, we'll put them together.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like well, we could have sorted. We could have individuals and then the combo.
Yeah.
For those who want both.
So I don't know if you had even said it yet, but it's Batman Day on Saturday.
Batman Day on Saturday.
So my first Batman comic book, I don't know if it's unfortunately or just the fact of life, was the sort of the novelization of the first Tim Burton movie. That was my first Batman comic book because I didn't know any better. I was like,
well, I like the original Tim Burton Batman. It was all right. Not the best.
What I like about it, I recently rewatched both the Burton Batman movies. Actually, I recently watched his first 4 movies, and I'm not a huge Burton fan, but I think they hold up well. I guess in comparing it to what they became, even like in the Schumacher years and even the Nolan stuff, is they're fairly fun in a weird way, I think, and there's no fun in the Nolan ones. Which I'm not discrediting them for that, but they have great sense of style too, and it's very dated now, but still they have like style to burn.
It also had Prince.
Had the Bat Dance. I do have the soundtrack actually on my phone. We can listen to it, but I'm not going to do that because I think Prince might sue us for that. If we
It's on YouTube.
Yeah. But the Bat Dance, you can't beat the Bat. Imagine if they would have tried. I feel like they should have the Bane Dance from like The Dark Knight Returns, but the Nolan thing, because it was so big, that's what affected Superman. Right? The Man of Steel. Because Superman Returns wasn't dark.
No, Superman Returns was, I think, actually like a legit sequel to... I don't want to say 4 because no one gave a crap about 3 or 4, but I want to say
2.
It was like a pseudo-sequel to 2.
I actually saw it twice in the theaters, which people think I'm crazy because they're like, Superman Returns was terrible. It's just like Superman catching heavy objects. But it's like...
What's wrong with that?
It sort of played nicely into the mythology. Both versions of 2, I think, are great. And the first one is like a biblical epic in a weird way. But I don't mind Superman Returns. Man of Steel, on the other hand, only, it was bad for a lot of reasons. Krypton looked terrible and...
It looked like Avatar.
Yeah, it looked a lot like Avatar.
It was Avatar with a different filter.
With the Matrix, too, because it had like the pod babies or something like that.
Yeah.
But it was dark, and Superman shouldn't be dark.
He's not
Yeah.
a fisherman.
Yeah,
No.
that's why. I mean, that's why I think a lot of people read Superman. Even Batman fans who like Superman, they read it because, while I'm sure they just like the character, they're like, okay, I got all this dark, gross stuff from like Gotham City and everything. Let's see what's going on with Metropolis. I got some happier things.
Yeah.
Let's throw some hope in there.
Yeah.
I mean, DC even got rid of the Blue Lantern Corps, so we know Hope's dead in the DC
Yeah.
universe.
Yeah, they're going dark. Except, I guess, the Flash on the CW. But
Do you feel that that's necessarily the right way to go?
I think it works for Batman enough. But even so, like, I don't want, even for me, like, I think Batman Begins is a decent movie. I like The Dark Knight a lot, which is everyone's opinion, but I didn't like The Dark Knight Returns. But I think, I don't say like a lighter Batman, but even like a color palette that isn't so dark. That was a problem with Man of Steel 2. It's like, man, like, where's the blue? Like, we want some happy blue, raspberry blue and stuff. But here's my question, because...
Oh, who's interviewing who now?
Yeah, so in 2008, we had Iron Man and The Dark Knight, right?
Yes.
What do you think would have happened if Iron Man wasn't a monster hit? Because Iron Man was huge, and deservedly so, it was a great movie.
Oh, fantastic.
It created the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But what if it would have made like $100 million at the box office, and all these what would they have done? Would they have rebooted Hulk again? Would they have try to reboot Captain America? Would they have done all this stuff, do you think? Or just been like, eh?
I personally...
That's like one of those things, like if the first domino misses, right? If it goes slightly to the rest and doesn't hit the rest, where are we at? And the Marvel Cinematic Universe, regardless of how I feel about individual films, and I have opinions about all of them, but I think it's really successful.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about it. This is the first movie company that has successfully managed to create a obvious and successful universe. There's a lot of movies, like I know like Joss Whedon likes to combine a lot, or at least have references, like apparently Age of Ultron had a Buffy reference, and they always like to throw little references, and a lot of people refer to some as the Whedonverse. I think that's stupid, but that's another story.
Yeah.
But, but if you're not a big fan, you don't get it. It passes you by, whereas the way the Marvel Cinematic Universe is now, even if you didn't notice it before because you didn't know about it, now it's gotten to a point where anybody could watch any of these movies and just be like, I know that. Or like when they watch Incredible Hulk and they see like Tony Stark and everything, you're like, that's Tony Stark. What's he doing here? Or, you see where things... So even something like Guardians of the Galaxy, spoiler alert, at the very end when you see Howard the Duck, even if no one knew what Howard the Duck was, after that moment, they could do a Howard the Duck movie now because... all that exposure, people would want to see a new Howard the Duck movie.
You can't say no. You can't say they haven't struck out yet. That's everyone keeps saying like, oh, Guardians of the Galaxy probably won't be a hit. It's a monster hit. Ant-Man probably won't be a hit. Moderate hit, but still enough hit where it's like, hey, where are they going to... I know they're going to probably do Black Panther and Doctor Strange.
I'm worried about Black Panther. I don't know what it is. There's something about Black Panther, and I'm really worried about it. I think Captain Marvel's going to do good. I think Doctor Strange is going to do it. There's something about Black Panther that I just feel like because a lot of people, even if they know him, they don't know too much about his origins, his backstory, or maybe don't know about Wakanda or the vibranium and all that stuff. I just am worried that the director they get for it might not have a love like a lot of these people do, if not for the character, at least for the comic books themselves, and are willing to go deep enough to do it. I hope they do, because of all the phase, I think that's technically part of phase 3.
Yeah.
Black Panther is the one I'm most excited to see, with bar none.
I'm excited for Doctor Strange. But just, so back to the hypothetical.
Yes.
If Iron Man didn't take off, would we have a Captain America movie? Would we have, I guess at least Captain America. We wouldn't have Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, hell no.
Probably wouldn't. Maybe not have Thor.
I think we might have gotten phase 1 to, like, I don't think we would have gotten Avengers, but I think we would have at least gotten 1 or 2 more movies after Iron Man.
They'd be doing what they did with the Hulk and then
Yeah.
the Incredible Hulk, and I don't know if they had the rights for Ghost Rider back then.
No, that was near Sony. Yeah.
I forgot about the Ghost Rider movies.
Yeah, both. And I went to see Zodiac in the theaters, and they accidentally started playing Ghost Rider. And there's people that are like screaming, "You're playing the wrong movie. We did not pay to see this shit. What is this?" And I was like, "Just calm down. They can switch reels." But think about that. The success of Iron Man 1 has changed Hollywood because now every studio wants to be Marvel. They all want to have cinematic universes. Like, we're going to make Godzilla a cinematic universe.
What?
We're going to make Peter Pan. You know, they're trying to do with all these things. Yes,
Are they really doing a Godzilla?
there's going to be another Godzilla. They have the rights now to King Kong, and they're going to do a King Kong versus Godzilla. They're saying that they want to do the old Universal horror characters. They with everything is now.
How are you going to
cinematic
tie
universe.
them together? Don't they take place in different years?
What's
like
that?
very different
Universal
years?
Monsters? They
Universal
did it.
Monsters.
Wolfman meets Frankenstein.
Yeah, but
No, but nowadays, because everyone wants logic in their movies. I'm saying, don't they respect? I mean, unless you're doing them all in a modern day setting, which honestly, I don't know if we really need those characters in modern day settings.
they would. You know, it would be better if it was set back in olden days. I think, but it's an interesting hypothetical.
Yeah.
But then the Marvel versus DC thing, where Marvel will win, is just that it has a sense of fun. What's the most serious Marvel Phase 1 or Phase 2 movie?
Captain America, Winter Soldier.
Winter Soldier, yeah. But then it's just like, hey, we're sort of doing a conspiracy theory movie. You know, we're ripping off the 70s conspiracy theory thrillers. And even that being the most serious, the darkest, it's still a fun movie.
Yeah, and it has its light moments, like how he hides the drive in the vending machine.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that in a DC comic book movie nowadays.
I guess it's a sense of self-seriousness, maybe. But I'm interested in what they do with Dawn of Justice. That'll be but here's the thing, if that doesn't explode and make $1 billion, are they going to continue with it? Is there going to be a Cyborg movie? Is there going to be a Flash movie? Is there going to be an Aquaman movie?
So you're saying that's their Iron Man?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so.
I can't.
I think they
can't
wanted
disagree.
to. I think they wanted it to be Man of Steel, but the Man of Steel, you know, it's like it didn't make as much money as they hoped. And also, you know, I truly believe that to be like a monster hit, it has to be at least a decent movie.
Yeah.
Right? It's like all the Marvel movies, even the ones I haven't liked, I understand their appeal. It's like, okay, this makes sense. This is sort of like filling this gap or whatever. And if anyone's interested, I just didn't like the Thor movies. I just wasn't a big fan.
Asgard was awesome.
Yeah.
Earth wasn't.
Yeah.
I think.
But they didn't have the balls to keep it all in Asgard, I guess.
Yeah. And Thor. I mean, don't get me wrong. Thor is a great character. Like, if anyone's.
And what's his name? Hemsworth. He's
Chris
a
Hemsworth.
great choice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And Tom Hiddleston. As
Yes, Loki, great.
And I mean, my God, Sir Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't have cast it better
Idris
as
Elba.
Guardians.
Yeah. It all works.
Like everything was great. It was just there just wasn't enough Asgard in those movies. Like even even the second movie, which really I think should have had a lot more Asgard than it did, especially because you're going interdimensional and stuff like that. And it's like, no, we need more Kat Denning being sarcastic and
Yeah.
she can fuck off. like me and my friends have proven, if you take every scene with Kat Denning from both of those movies out, you get the same movie just without Kat Denning. She adds or subtracts nothing.
Right.
She's just there to be there, and she's awful. And everyone looks at her from the neck down, and I can understand why. But I look at her from the neck up, and I'm like, bitch, your eyes. What are you looking at?
So that's that. So are we officially in Phase 3 yet? Was Avengers?
Ant-Man was the end of
End of-
Phase 3 or Phase 2.
Because there's nothing else this year, right?
No.
That's weird.
Well, they wanted originally.
War Phase
Originally it
3.
was supposed to be the other way, but I guess they thought.
So Captain America's the first Phase 3.
I believe so. I think I read what they wanted to do. Originally, they wanted to do Ant-Man and Age of Ultron the other way, like have Ant-Man come out when Ultron came out and vice versa. But then they thought because it's obscure, it would work better in that time of the year, like Guardians worked. And honestly, I think that was a mistake. I think they should have released Ultron when they released Ant-Man, because I think with Ant-Man, at that time, a lot more people are home and they're not out and about. They're more willing to try a new movie, I think. And then by the end, because it's summertime, I mean, people are just going to go to the movies anyway. Avengers? Hell yeah.
But Ant-Man kind of ties into Civil War. The end credits.
That is true.
And the tension starts with Tony and Steve in Age of Ultron.
Yeah. Also, they wanted to own the summer. Yes, we have to open first. Although they didn't. Avengers lost to Jurassic World. Who would have thought? No one predicted that.
I did.
Nobody predicted. You did? Really?
I'm not a Whedon fan. I had no faith in him.
Oh.
I really wasn't blown away by Avengers like everyone else was. I think it was the second weakest of Phase 1. I think Hulk was the weakest. The only reason I'm not going to say Thor, because Thor was above Avengers because of the hype. I think it was the only reason Thor was not as weak is because it didn't have the hype machine that Avengers had. Because you had all these years, you had all these movies, and it's like we just got Joss Whedon, have a bunch of people have a pointless conversation in a boardroom. Yay! Now the ending action was fantastic. It was great. It was action packed. It was awesome, but it was just too damn long. Too much pointless dialogue, in my opinion. Again, I'm not a Whedon fan, so maybe it's one of those things where it's like, if you're a Whedon fan, this is awesome. And that's why I don't say, like, he sucks. I just say I'm not a fan.
Well, a lot of people who didn't even know who Joss Whedon was still like the Avengers. I think it's just the balancing act was impressive.
Yeah.
Which it'll be interesting to see what they do with the Justice League, if they can pull that off, too, because it's a tough balance.
No, I agree. And, so... before we move on, because we gotta talk about
Yeah.
Leonard
I only had
everything.
one other Marvel question: is if you guys are bothered by the fact that it seems like everyone will be in everyone's movie. There won't be like there's not gonna be like a Captain American solo movie anymore.
I don't like it because, we had a conversation on the podcast once where I said the thing I hate most about modern day comics, not just everyone's, because I feel like while I like the fact that everyone's trying to, appeal to different groups, I feel like the way they're doing it is very pandering, and it's like, if you want to appeal to these groups, make new characters. Like, when they create Black Panther as a form of diversity. They didn't turn someone else and they didn't take a black guy and make him the next Thor or the next thing. They gave him his own character. Luke Cage, Power Man. They created a new character and a new alter ego. I think that's what Marvel needs to do. But
Miles Morales.
Now Miles Morales is an example of that done right.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But they don't have
yeah.
the nuts to make him the star of the next movie.
I don't know. I just think but
People know
but on
Peter
Top,
Parker. They don't know Miles Morales.
But-
The average
But it's
person will know.
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But it's
I know.
Spider-Man. So
But
you're
true.
on top
Very
of
true.
that, though, what I hate more than that is what you're saying. Because it kind of makes you feel like, well, why do I have to read this person's book? Like, especially with Justice League. It's like, why do I have to read Justice League if literally Batman and Wonder Woman and all these people are going to show up here? Why do I have to read that? Especially now, because Justice League isn't even canonical. It's its own thing. So it's like, okay, I'm reading my Superman book, and Superman's like fighting for justice and peace and all that shit. Why do I care about Justice League when Batman's just going to show up unannounced? Like it was like back in the day. It's kind of like, whenever you'd watch an old TV show and you'd find out guest starring so-and-so, you'd be like, oh shit, so-and-so is going to be on this episode. And you had time to be pumped and prepared. And even if it didn't matter, it was just like, oh my god, that person was on the show. That feeling's gone because not only do you not get it announced, so therefore you have no reason to be excited, but then it's like it happens so much that it's like, why do I care? I think the closest thing anyone ever got, and unless you were like a huge Spawn fan, you didn't care, was when they brought Angela into the Marvel Universe. Because now you had a character from a completely different imprint that people actually cared about and never made fun of. Because a lot of people could say, well, what about, Wildcats or something from Image when Marvel bought those characters, or DC bought those characters. And I'm like, because no one gave a shit. No one cares about them and Stormwatch.
Some people might.
Some do, but not really. But a lot of people read Spawn, and a lot of people like Neil Gaiman, who created Angela for the Medieval Spawn series. I think it was issue 7 of Spawn is where she started, and then he did the Medieval Spawn. And so you've got two different groups of people. You've got the Spawn fans, three. The Spawn fans, the Medieval Spawn fans, and then the Neil Gaiman fans, and they're like, oh shit, this is new, this is fresh, and they're going to do something completely different with her. I think for me, that was the last time a crossover really meant something. I mean, can you guys remember the last time a crossover really meant something? Even just to you, even if it didn't mean anything to the world.
Oh, to the world? Huh. No.
Secret Wars?
I mean, the last crossover I can think of, other than the original Secret Wars, was Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yeah.
That was like, because not only did you get every character, but you got every version of that character.
Right.
You even got characters that I don't even know if actually exist, like Uncle Sam and the Freedom Fighters and stuff like that. What was it? Psycho Pirate was a character. I'm like, who the fuck is Psycho Pirate? I don't know. I what do you think they could do to modern day comics could do to rectify that kind of stuff, like the overuse of these kinds of tropes, I guess you could call them?
Oh, what, just like instead of developing new characters, change? No, I think you're right. It gets really I guess it gets irksome where it's like, even they made the announcement, it's like, oh, Hulk's going to be a Korean now. It's like, it doesn't do, it doesn't do anything. Like, why can't there be an original, like, Asian superhero that's new? And, there's so many creative people, even within these huge conglomerates like a DC and Marvel, that are, I'm sure, willing and able to, like, let's go for it. Now we have more people paying attention to us. Let's start to create some new characters.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
And I mean, that's what made Marvel so big when Stan Lee started, he created the Fantastic Four, and then him and Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko did Spider-Man, and, then you got Hulk and Thor and all these other things. And it was like, they were new, they were fresh. DC started doing that a little bit. You got the Teen Titans, and you got all these different things that were going on. The Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. When was the last time you heard of a book where criminals were pseudo-reforming?
Yeah.
Like, you didn't hear about that. And it's like, well, I don't know if they feel like everything's been done, but I definitely agree with you. We need some new.
Well, it's interesting because
blood.
the independent labels are now a haven for guys and girls who are writing these superhero comics to go and do what they really want. But imagine if you gave them that creative freedom at a Marvel or DC, instead of like don't run off to Image or don't run off to Boom and do your comics. Stay here, except expand our universe. And I don't know why they don't, because there's so many opportunities with animated movies and shows, TV, film. It's like something's gonna something can hit if you give it enough time.
Now, do you believe in the idea of the story should be writer-directed, editor-directed, or do you think it's a case of you need both sometimes?
Oh, no, you definitely need both because, writers, we have a lot of good sense of storytelling and stuff, but sometimes we can be our own worst enemies and indulgent with things and not move things along quickly enough. We were talking about Inglourious Basterds before. Like, you've got like a 20-minute scene in the middle of the movie with people just, playing a game and meeting, and then everyone dies. It's like, does it move the story forward? Maybe, maybe not. But it's like, did you need that? You can spend 6 issues not going anywhere. And editors are, I think, sort of unsung heroes of all publishing, not just in comic books, but in books too. I mean, you don't know who they are normally. But I mean, these are sharp people who are helping craft stories, helping to make sure these characters are expanding and developing interestingly and being complex and all that stuff. So like every all-star comic book writer that you read or love, they got a great editor behind them. Obviously, like, an editor could have a lot of pressures too. It's like, the same thing as it's like, well, what we need to do? We just need to keep on writing Thor books. And we need to keep on writing Spider-Man books. We don't want to like get too crazy with it, but even within that,
Superior Spider-Man.
Yeah,
I love Superior Spider-Man. Shut up.
Yeah.
The piggyback on that, it's also, you definitely need the editor because in this day and age, people have such short attention spans. If they don't like the first issue, they might not even read it ever again.
And some people are
I don't think they
insane,
would.
i.e. Grant Morrison. I love you, but you're weird sometimes.
Well, right. I mean, here's the thing. Is like, like I really appreciate a lot of Image books, but those are more writer driven than editor driven, and you can tell sometimes you're like, what is going on? Like, I'm an intelligent person. I've got college degrees. Like, I don't know what this is. Like, I mean, I do. If you had a good editor, maybe I would. So there's a happy medium, I hope. But yeah, Grant Morrison's an interesting character.
Now, getting into what you've been working on.
What I do.
You've been working on a series called Lantern City.
I do.
Now, for those who are listening, this is their first time hearing about it. They've never heard it before. How would you describe Lantern City to them?
Lantern City is a science fiction, more specifically a steampunk epic comic book series. It's scheduled right now as a 12-parter, but it could be an ongoing series. And it is it's a family saga. It's a crime drama. It is an action-packed, character-driven story that takes place in an alternate world from ours. That is sort of a totalitarian, walled-in world in which one guy has to go undercover as a guard in the city, which are called Lantern City Guards, in order to what he thinks is to protect and save his family, but he finds out as he moves along that that's not really happening, and other things are sort of there's other these machinations at work, and even though he's thinking he's doing great things, he's only one cog in the wheel, and essentially about one man who has to become the thing he hates in order to protect the people he loves.
And what I like about it is I binge read the whole 5 issues there.
Thank you.
Oh my god, he texted
And
me.
I
He's like,
apologize.
"Oh."
I apologize in advance because I submitted issue 9 last week, so I'm a little bit ahead, and I sometimes forget what has and hasn't happened. But I remember now the end of 5. So.
Well, I don't want to spoil it for
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
Basically,
We want you to read
It's
it.
the
Yes.
first issue. The main character is Sander.
Yeah.
And I really like him as a character because the whole issue, he doesn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Everyone's pressuring him. Peer pressure wins again.
Yeah.
They pressure him. You got to do it. You got to do this. His wife, his brother, they're all pressuring him. He's like, I don't want to do it. I want to just live my life. And that's what the everyday person would be like.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. I don't want to go out of my comfort zone.
Well, I think we're so programmed now for the, sort of like the Joseph Campbell hero's journey, where it's like everyone takes the call to action and they feel like they're meant to do it. This guy, he pretty much knows, like, this is not for me. Like, I am not the person you're looking for. I'm not the savior who's going to make these great changes. Nothing I do is going to make a difference. And that's how most people feel, right? It's like, how many people think they're going to become like the greatest thing ever? And it's, sometimes you have to be a little bit crazy to even think something like that. And I'm excited to see how you think it all ends. I mean, how you feel about it at the end, because
The issues, every issue, it's just like you think, oh, he's got it covered, and then you just make his life miserable.
I try not to be a terribly, terribly mean person to these characters that I create, but you got to put them through a shitstorm and a half, because it's not interesting if it's not, and you have to see how they react. Now he is for a good portion of what you've been able to read so far through issue 5, a reactionary character. He isn't taking things in his own hands, but he does in issue 5. I think it's where he starts to really, I guess more like the end of issue 4 when he realizes things aren't exactly what he thought they were.
Yeah.
That's sort of like maybe his call to his own hero's journey. But yeah, I didn't want someone that wanted that. And even like throughout, he doesn't want it. And like where he ends up by the end of issue 12, you'll see it's like, that's not where he thought he would end up. That's not where anyone thought he would end up. It's like, okay, that makes sense for the story though.
Now, what got you interested in wanting to write this kind of book? Not just the style with steampunk, but like the themes that you're exploring and the kind of characters that you are writing.
Yeah, I try my best to, even though it's science fiction and steampunk, I try my best not to make it so entrenched in what steampunk is or what people think it is that someone who doesn't like steampunk wouldn't read. And that's true for anything. It's like if I was going to be writing a space opera, I wouldn't want it to be so like jargon heavy or entrenched in those tropes where like someone who wouldn't be interested in like a space set story wouldn't read it. And I think that starts with the characters. I try to make them as realistic as possible. Like you can see that, this character makes sense and the things that he or she does make sense because it's how they've been established. I think that's what helps bring people into it. Like, hopefully interest you enough in issue 1 to keep going on. It's like, well, what is going to happen with these people? Because this is kind of a little bit unexpected, maybe.
Do you, when you're writing these characters, do you ever take like your own personal experience or anybody you know's personal experience or characteristics and maybe add them to it, or kind of put your own spin on these kinds of things?
Absolutely. I mean, you got to pull from your own life. I think as a writer, and anyone who's listening that wants to be a writer, I think one of the best things you can do besides reading a lot and writing a lot is just to observe things. Like pay attention to people, pay attention to how they behave, pay attention to how they talk, because you'll start filling in. Like I always have people in mind when I'm building a character, like a little bit of this person, a little bit of that person, and let's put them together. It also helps me keep track of things, even like how they speak and all that stuff. But I mean, you have to pull from your own life. I'm not saying this is not in any which ways autobiographical, but I mean, I'm a father of 3, so I think about like if I was in his situation, what would I do? Like, what would be the best thing to do for my family if I felt like they were in danger, or if my wife was pressuring me, like, you really have to do this because our family depends on it. Like our family's safety depends on it. So there's only so much pushing back you can do. There's a certain point where you're gonna have to say like, all right, I have to sacrifice in order to do this. And so, there's a lot of different reasons that I like this particular storyline, because I've developed a lot of storylines for the property. and I don't, it's not necessarily, I think, something that people can quote unquote relate to, but everyone's been in a situation or probably faced with a situation where it's like, I got to make this decision that could really impact the rest of my life. But it's maybe not just for me, it's for someone else's benefit. It's like if you're going to college and you're like, I want to go to college far away, but like my mom is a single mom, and if I go far away, like who's going to help her out? So it's like, well, will I be able to follow my dreams? I don't know, but it's like this things that you feel like you have to do. There's, it's a weird example. I know it's not in the book, but just saying those kind of things. It's like that kind of stuff.
Who in the book would you say is the most like you?
Who is the most like me? Oh boy, that's a good question. I also have to be careful because I'm 4 issues ahead of what we've printed so far.
Feel free to be as spoiler free as you like. If you the character who is you is in a later issue.
No, just thinking about like, I suppose it would be. It's a little bit of a couple characters, but I guess Sander a lot only because he's my creation, and I definitely put some of me in him, but I also like the sort of the smart-assness of Lizelle, who's Sanders' niece. I like her a lot, and the willingness to just like, let's do this, kind of like I'm gonna take, like I don't need anyone else's help. I'm gonna do this myself, and the early idealism of Kendall, who's Sanders' brother-in-law, definitely him too. I'm a very optimistic person, even in the face of great adversity. I always try to remain optimistic.
So it kind of lets you play off different.
Am I pseudo at all? I'll say. When you see Pseudo's character develop, I think everyone's kind of been in his shoes where like, you've got to do your job even if you don't want to do your job. And like, sometimes you doing your job requires you being a dick to other people, or, like sacrificing a lot of your own, personal sense of worth. It's like, because you have a job. We have a lot of pressure within our world to like, quote unquote, do our job. And like,
Seems like he's worked a lot of retail.
Yeah, it's always like that. It's like the customer is always right, and he's in that position. Like his boss is the most powerful person in the world. So like we don't quite have that in our world. But just imagine like if your boss, even if you're working for a multi-billion-dollar company and your boss, is worth $5 billion, and do you question them? Do you challenge them? Probably not.
No.
And if they give you a task, if he or she gives you a task to do, you don't want to do it. Do you want your job? Yeah, so you better do it.
So you're a comic book writer. What got you started writing? Did you just wake up one day saying, you know what, I'm going to write a comic book, or was it a certain you read an issue of Howard the Duck that you're like, oh, you know what, I want to do this?
I started reading at a young age. Like I've always loved reading. And then comic books, what I love about comic books is because I also love movies, and it was kind of like reading movies to me. And so I always did want to eventually get into comic book writing. I have more of a background in like documentary writing and in business writing. That's where I sort of made my bones. But doing this project, Lantern Seed, I got pulled in early on to help develop it. I like world building a lot. And not that I don't plan other people's, like sand pits, but I like creating worlds, and so this was a good opportunity. And I had developed so many stories for this world that was able to take one of them, because the Sander storyline was originally going to be a novel. I wrote quite a bit of it, and I was like, I think this would be a better comic book, and then sort of figured out how that would be, and we pitched it to Boom and Archaea, and they picked it up, and they really liked it, and that was that. So I didn't know how to write a comic book, though. Crazy enough is that I think being a fan of anything doesn't mean you can create that. It's like, I love movies, doesn't mean I could make a movie, or it's like,
trust me,
yeah,
we know from experience.
I love apple pie, doesn't mean I can make an apple pie, but I was lucky that Boom and Archaea picked it up, and I was going to be a part of the writing team no matter what, even though I was just developing story or what. But I was pretty adamant. Like I didn't just want to be like, I'll develop the stories and someone else write it. I want to know. I'm pretty hands on like that. And especially when it comes to something I really enjoy, like I want to learn how to write all kinds of stuff. And so I was able to learn under Paul Jenkins, who I co-wrote the first issue with, and he's a veteran, super good chap, and he sort of taught me the beats of how to write a comic book. And after that, just learned and then I've been doing it ever since. And it's a great pleasure to write comic books out. It's really awesome. Because it's, it's like, for a lot of people, when they're young, it's like comic books, video games, and toys. So it's like, I'm not going to be a toy designer ever. Probably won't ever be a game designer, but I can write comic books, which is pretty cool.
If only you could make money just coming up with the ideas and make it.
Well, I mean,
Well, there is someone like that.
yeah,
It's
there's
like
someone
the
that does that.
I want to be
CEO
him.
of Disney.
Yeah, it's, but you have to have good ideas, and
Oh, I don't have those.
yeah, that's the thing. But yeah, I would say, like, for people who are listening, if you want to write comic books, it's kind of tricky to learn on your own, but especially really the Marvel and DC, even though they're kind of the most formulaic, but you want to learn that formula and think about like what's happening on each page, like how are story beats, like at the end of every odd page. It's like the right-hand page, like you're going to have almost like a little cliffhanger that makes people want to turn the page to the next one. And like every single page should be its own story. And then like even the bottom of the even number pages or left pages should still make you want to get to the top of the, the little things like that. Like how do you do that? How do you plot out and like how to spend much time and how many panels per page? Like you don't want to have 15 panels every page because then no one's going to read it, that kind of stuff,
You don't want to get too wordy.
Yeah, you don't want to get too wordy. You got to let and as a writer, you have to trust the art. But I think that's like the toughest thing as a writer when you're getting into comic books. And same with movies. Like I have a movie coming out next year. I wrote it. I haven't seen it, but I know it's not what I wrote. I know that already.
Yeah.
Because a director influenced it, actors influenced it, an editor influenced it. All these things. It's like it's not what I wrote. But knowing that, and that's like what I wrote for these comic books. It's not the same thing as what. It's actually better because the artist is awesome. Carlos Magno's the man, but that's sort of the thing. Like, I guess unless you can do everything, then you'll never have absolute creative control. If you can write, draw, and all that stuff,
And actually, I wanted to piggyback because I was going to ask it, but you kind of mentioned it in what you were saying. Because I know like some companies do it differently, independent writers do it, and artists do it differently. Now, when you're writing a book, do you have the art and you're writing to the art and making it work? Is it the words first and then the art? Like,
no, it's a script first. Yeah, I mean, a majority of artists are not also writers, and so they wouldn't even know where to start. And that's no disrespect to them because most people read comic books for the art, and I understand that. So, but they need to know. So I can show you what it looks like. I write in a sketchbook because I actually draw out what I write, which sounds kind of stupid, but for me, it's the only way I can do it. So here's like an example. This is issue 3 of Lantern City. But these are there's 5 panels on page 1, and you can go look at the book right now. You can see it. And then it's like, so I literally write out, and then type it up, and it gets sent to the artist.
There's literally panels with words, guys.
Yeah, it's panels with words, and I know it's about it. It is actually as sexy as we just described it.
Oh, yeah.
But that's, so I know, because if not, I tend to just get like over wordy and you don't think through, but like if I draw it out like this, I know like this panel right here, this is the bottom of a odd page panel. I know that this has to be a little like mini cliffhanger. What happens here? Oh, so then they want to turn the page kind of thing.
No, I can't say everybody does it, but the way you do it is you plan it out as a comic book. It's not like how, because I've heard some writers, they write it as a story and then adapt it to comics. It seems like you like completely write it as a comic book from beginning to end.
Yeah, if I didn't, it would be messy for me at least. And I think it's good to have, even though there's no structure or parameters for writing a comic book. There's not, or like a formula, whereas there are like formulas and stuff for film and TV and stuff. But I treat it that way because it just helps me think, and I want to make Carlos's job easier. Yeah. So.
Going back to what got you started, what brought you to the dance, or now, do you have a favorite comic book? It could be a character,
ever, or current,
story,
ongoing.
It could be a current, ongoing.
Oh, so series I mean, if I had to give up all series but one right now, I know this is gonna be like a super obvious answer, but it would definitely be Saga. I love Saga, and that's sort of a, I guess, cheap cop-out answer, but it's the truth. I really love Saga. But all-time favorite characters, superhero, it would probably be Daredevil. I do like Wolverine a lot too, but I really like. But I'm also obsessed with cities and any characters that are urban based. That's why I wish the X-Men were a little bit more urban based, because I mean they're in New York, but they're like upstate New York. And then does that really count? Non-superhero? I mean, I love the Sandman series from Neil Gaiman. That was a game changer for me. But I guess he's kind of a superhero. Kind of, sort of.
We'll take it.
Yeah, but more, I guess, like an ongoing series that I really liked that wasn't superhero based. I loved Scalp by Jason Aaron. I thought that was pretty fantastic. That was really awesome. And there's like standalone graphic novels that I love, but probably Daredevil, Sandman, and Scalped, more recent stuff that I can't even explain why I love Daredevil so much, but I just think it's pretty great. And I think his alter ego makes sense, and he doesn't have to be rich. He's got to be like middle class, which is kind of cool.
What did you think about the Daredevil show?
I've not watched a single frame of it yet. I will. I promise I will.
It's worth it.
I'm in the same boat, dude.
Yeah, and it's not that I don't want to watch it. I just haven't seen it. I'm really excited for season 2 already, though, because they've got what's this guy's name? Who's the actor that's playing Punisher?
Bernthal.
Joe Bernthal or whatever like that. He's awesome.
He was Shane
on The Walking Dead. Yeah.
I guess my question is, after every kill, is Frank gonna like rub his head every time?
Yeah.
I want to see that. I just want to be like,
Yeah, sex
rub.
with Rick's wife.
Yeah. Well, whatever. But I think it's
Matt's wife. He's gonna get one.
I think it's interesting because we're in such a crazed culture now where you can have a really unforgettably bad movie in the 2003 Daredevil, which I saw a preview screening of in Mobile, Alabama in 2003. And then people are like, I'm still hungry for Daredevil, and I'll spend 10 hours with him. Like, that's kind of cool. I mean, we're also in like reboot culture, which I guess could be dangerous, but back in the day, if it was think about like in the 90s, they tried with the Rocketeer and the Shadow and the Phantom, and it's like, they didn't really work. So it's not like, well, 5 years later we'll try again. It just didn't happen. Yeah. But now it's like, okay.
I kind of wish the Phantom, because I mean, I'm a medium-sized fan of the Phantom, and I think it was a story that could have worked with better actors and with a better team.
So when did Phantom come out? 93, 94?
I think it was like 94, 95, because I remember
the Shadow
being in like
was
first or second grade when
95. Yeah. So if the Phantom would have happened 5 years later, you probably could have gotten like a George Clooney, who wasn't like a movie star quite yet or something like that, but like.
But then he did Batman and Robin.
But if he wouldn't have done Batman,
and Robin, yeah. I'm just saying. I just think like a lot of those older characters, a lot of the pulp characters, and a lot of the old like ones from the comic strips. I mean, a company like Dynamite has been putting out. They did the Owl, which was to a lot of people a very obscure character, a character that predates and sort of inspired Batman. And they did a 4-issue miniseries, and it was fantastic. It was one of the best miniseries I think I've ever read, at least in the last, 10 years, and it was just so well done. It was that whole, guy from the past trying to make in the future, but now it's rather than him trying to deal with his life, because it always seems like it's like them getting used to society is the backstory, and the main story is them getting used to their life, but it's like him adjusting to the new culture, like how the new, I forget her name, but like his sidekick, it was a new person in that outfit, but she was killing people,
right? And
it's like, no, we don't do that. It's like, well, nowadays that's what people expect.
What we do, yeah.
And I felt like it was kind of a social statement, or like something to how the modern culture is, how negative everything is, and how it's like, if you don't go doom and gloom, no one's going to pay attention.
Right.
And at the end, it kind of rectifies itself, because he kind of turns her, but she's still kind of open to the idea of going back. So it's like, if you've never read it, I recommend. But they've been doing a great job with a lot of those characters. I think now it's time to bring those back. Bring back the Shadow. Do Darkman.
Yeah.
Why not?
They could. I have a special fondness for The Rocketeer. I still think it's a pretty good movie, and they probably will. I'm sure we'll see another Phantom movie, or at least animated series or something. And why not? I mean, these are pretty good characters.
One question I wanted to ask, since we were talking about movies, if you can think of one popular character from comic books, who never got a movie and at this point is not getting a movie, who would be the one character not only A, you would like to see, but you would like to write and possibly direct?
Maybe Animal Man, maybe? Animal Man, I
My
think.
man.
Yeah, I think it'd be Animal
Right
Man.
here.
And I don't think they will do it.
Can we, if you decide to do it, can we work on
Yes,
together? Because that's my dream is to direct the Animal Man movie.
If someone at Warner Brothers in DC is listening,
We want to do it.
yeah, I think Animal Man would be great. And I like that they were crossing over with Swamp Thing when Lemire and Snyder, I guess, are bros. So
Yeah, it was a great story until the end.
Yeah.
And like nothing happened. It literally was just like, lol, JK, now they're separate again. Like,
yeah, I think that would be an interesting one.
we can fix Rot World.
Yeah, I'm trying. Is there any others? No, that's probably it. That is probably it. Oh, I'm seeing the Judge Dredd over there on the wall. That was again a terrible movie in '95, and then in 2012, a really entertaining, amazing movie.
Because they follow the rules. You don't remove the helmet.
Yeah, well, I watched.
And you don't put Rob Schneider in there.
Well, yeah, I watched Dredd and the first Raid Redemption the same night. It was a very same movie. It was very fun though. But here's the thing: same movie, but both so different enough where they're like great in their own ways.
One has bullets, one has kicks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, other than your own work, what's something, a book or a movie or anything that you feel is like so good, but yet so underrated that maybe someone else hasn't heard, that you're like, you guys need to check this out? What would you say is that?
Oh.
That's I guess we could say that silver tuna, if you would.
Yeah.
That diamond in the rough.
Well, I'll go with I don't know if they're underrated. I don't know. So I really like. Well, I'll give two filmmakers whose stuff I really liked. I like Shane Carruth's stuff a lot, who did Primer and Upstream Color, which you can see on Netflix. He's awesome, science fiction stuff. And then I don't remember the guy's name, but he did the crime film Blue Ruin. Did you guys see Blue Ruin?
Oh yeah.
And there's a new movie. He has a new movie coming out soon called Green Room, which is supposed to be amazing. It's about like a hardcore band that gets like trapped.
Is
like
Alan Rickman in it?
Yeah, like
man.
with like these neo Nazis and stuff. But I would just say at this point they're a little bit under the radar, and this is like the thing that people I remember used to do. I'm not sure if they still do, like where they don't want their favorite band to blow up or like sign to a major label because then they're gonna like sell out. But I almost feel like I just hope these guys never take like a big studio movie, because even like Rian Johnson, like I love Rian Johnson's movies, but now he's doing Star Wars. Like I'm kind of excited, but I also kind of wish he would just maybe keep making his own movies. And then books, I don't know. I mean, I feel like everything I read is pretty. I mean, I really like Patrick Rothfuss, who did the. Who's doing like the Kingslayer Chronicles, which is really cool. And I don't know if you guys read The Passage or The 12, which are like really pretty awesome books.
I have been so
by Justin Cronin. Yeah, those are pretty awesome books. But in comics, I don't know. I don't know that I read anything that no one else is reading or pushing. But yeah, those like filmmakers and authors for sure. If you're not checking them out, do so. And I think especially for like, I think that Blue Ruin is on Netflix, and a lot of people have Netflix, and I know that Primer and Upstream Color on. They're heady stuff, like especially Primer and Upstream Color. Like you need to pay attention. You can't like go up and get some popcorn in the middle of it. You need to pay attention. Every scene matters. So, but they're cool stuff, and it's if you like thinking man science fiction kind of stuff, yeah. Folk show. How about you guys?
Oh.
I think it's under. Are we still on the underrated? Or are we talking about comic book
underrated
characters? Underrated. I think a lot of Troma movies, the Toxic Avenger.
Oh, of course, Kabuki Man.
I love Kabuki Man. We actually did a top 5 superhero movies on Monday, and Kabuki Man was on my list.
And
great.
Toxic Avenger.
I think they
That's
get a
great.
bad rep because they're made 5 cents.
Well, James Gunn started in
Yeah.
Trauma.
Yep. Tromeo and Juliet.
Tromeo and Juliet. And that was a
it's
great
pretty
movie.
good movie, man.
Yeah.
Pretty good movie.
I think like Terra Firma and all. I think they get like a bad rap,
Well,
especially
actually,
Class of Nukem
Well,
High.
to
I
be
think
fair,
that gets-
Terra
Yeah,
Firma is Lloyd Kaufman's best rated movie that he's directed, and even still people do shit on it. But I thought Terra Firma was his best work. I mean, let me put this: if I was in his position to where I was making these kinds of movies, I would have retired after that movie, because I've seen his work after it, and it's not bad, but it's just like, dude, you're not gonna make another Terra Firma. As much as I love Toxie, you can't do another one. For me, as far as movies, Movies are tough for me because I'm not I guess at least I'm not a cinephile.
Yeah.
So I'm not what you would call a movie guy. Comic books, I would definitely say, piggybacking off the movie we want to make, Animal Man is like one of those characters that's like, unless you're like deep into comic books, you've never heard of him. I've told so many people, I'm like, dude, if you're like, they're like, hey, I'm trying to get into comics because they know I like them. And I'm like, well, where would I start? I was like, well, dude, Animal Man's a great series to start. It's inexpensive. Like, even if you want to get all the issues individually, it's very inexpensive. Like, Animal Man, what's that? And it's like, does he turn into animals? And what's funny is I think it was like the first or second issue, they actually make fun of the fact that people think that.
Yeah.
And he goes on the thing. And I tell people, it's like, it's a great book because it plays off the idea of superheroes. How with Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman, when they're in the Justice League, this is a code of honor. This is respect and things like that. With Animal Man, it's like, this is a job. It pay, it's 9 to 5. They pay money. He finds out in one issue after fighting with Mirror Master, like they destroy his home in a fight. Martian Manhunter shows up. He's like, Manhunter, what are you doing here? Well, you were just in a fight with a supervillain. Technically speaking, if your house gets destroyed during a supervillain fight, your insurance through the Justice League will cover it.
Yeah.
So it's like all these things. And then there's this one issue where he's dealing with Wile E. Coyote. Like, Wile E. Coyote comes in from the Warner Brothers universe because DC has the rights to that too. And they bring him into the real world, and he's like, he's constantly getting killed. He gets like seriously like mutilated, and he's just talks about how he feels the pain, and it's just such a disturbing issue. But you can't. Or I think there was one issue he meets Grant Morrison. I mean, how many comic book characters got to meet their writer in an issue? It's like, it's such a good. And then when they got to Vertigo, they went a lot more, I think, the darker and trippy route. And then Jeff Lemire and Travel Foreman, particularly that early run. Fantastic. I mean, the art afterwards was good, but Travel Foreman's art and Jeff Lemire's writing is a match made in comic book heaven.
Oh, it's good.
You can't, in my opinion, you can't do much better.
I think I didn't answer my comic book. If I could make a comic book character movie, it'd be Moon Knight. I think Moon Knight is a character that's very underutilized. He's kind of like a real character. Like, that's what would happen. You would have multiple personalities if you were, forget their names. I'll remember them after the podcast. But all of his alter egos and Moon Knight, and then he has Khonshu on his shoulder. I think that can really. And he has interesting. He fights werewolves and dictators and stuff like that. I mean, Bushman's just a ridiculous character.
Probably the best use of schizophrenia. Technically, I mean, it is multiple person. Isn't that multiple personality? Mm-hmm. Yeah, like probably, in my opinion, probably one of the best uses of that I've ever seen in any medium,
also,
for that matter.
Best sidekick of Frenchie. If I could cast it, it'd be Bruce Campbell, because he was in Spider-Man 3 as the French waiter.
Yeah.
So I would probably have him as Frenchie.
But would he be French or French Canadian? Because we got to update it. So
do
we want to do French?
Just be Bruce Campbell.
That's it.
He doesn't even talk with a French accent.
He turns out at the end of Moon Knight he's Ash.
Coming back.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. I gotta get stars.
Oh my god, yes.
That's going to be their big ticket to fame, I think.
Hopefully. But it's almost time to wrap it up because Gordon's trying to close the store or whatever. So you're going to be at Baltimore Comic Con.
I will be at Baltimore Comic Con Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
And that's located in what city? I forgot.
Kentucky.
Where are we now?
I want to say it's in Waldorf.
Waldorf.
No, it's in Kenya. It's in Kenya.
Right.
No, Baltimore. That's it.
Baltimore. So I do have a panel. If this goes up before Saturday, I have a panel at 11 a.m. on Saturday for Lantern City. Exciting times. You'll see cool artwork and hear me talk again about different things, probably different questions.
Can they give you a hug?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so if you're into hugging comic book writers, you can hug.
I'm okay with hugs,
but no more, because
not at this stage.
Yeah.
Not at this
Gotta buy him
stage.
dinner.
Unless I see that you bought all the variants for issue 1, then I'll let you do more.
Because he likes to be wined and dined first. If his wife's listening, we are just kidding.
Yeah, she knows that. I don't drink anyway, so I'm a cheap date. I'm just dined. I don't even wined.
Just dine the man.
I'm just dined.
Is there anything you'd like to plug before we head out on this magical journey?
No, read Lantern City. Read a lot of comic books. Support independent comic books, too. Support independent movies. Support independent music. All that stuff. Nothing wrong with the big guys, but sometimes the little guys need help. Support independent podcasting.
Yep. Is there a Twitter handle or
Matthew J. Daley. at Matthew J. Daley is mine. At Lantern City is the project. And yeah, that's it. I'm not a great Twitter guy. I try. I don't know. I need more than 140 characters sometimes.
Yeah, you're a writer.
I'm a writer.
That's good practice for comic books.
It's
go.
true.
Too
It's
wordy.
true.
There you go. Now, we did describe this as our Inside the Actor studio, so I want to ask the rather infamous and well-known question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say to you as you enter the pearly gates?
Finally.
I always wanted to ask that.
Well, thank you, and
Yes.
I can't wait to read more Lantern City.
It's coming. Hold you on to your seats.